there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome to my channel. Those of you here for the very first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first 2 novels, one a standalone, one the start of a series. And on my channel I like to talk about what I consider to be the heart of writing, and that's the characters. And the heart of the characters can be found in their psychology. So that's the angle I like to take with everything I talk about on my channel pretty much. Okay guys, so for today I kind of wanted to do a fun one. I've been talking about bits and pieces of my work in progress for probably as long as I've had this channel. But I haven't really sat down and given you guys like a story blurb or anything like that. So I kind of want to do that today. I'll give you a little more info on the characters, on the setting, that kind of thing. Blurbs are hard. They really are. I don't know why as authors we can write like over 100,000 words, but coming up with a basic blurb of what our story's about is so difficult, but it is. But that being said, I just want it to be kind of an informal, here's kind of the story I'm working on. Like I said, I do have 2 stories right now. This one is for my series. The other one is a standalone, which I will talk about at a later date. So right now, the story that I'm working on is called Coexist. I do have multiple books planned for it. The main beginning story is probably going to be about 3 novels. I see it as like a trilogy start to a series. But I also feel like I'm going to have a lot more stories to tell in this world. Not necessarily with the same characters, but in the same world. Sometimes with the same characters, sometimes with secondary characters, sometimes with completely new characters. I think that's fun. That's one reason I like to make a really in-depth world that has lots of different creatures, lots of different settings, because I think there's lots of room to just explore these different cultures and these different ideas. So that's what I like to do. So within this world, we have a planet that is similar to Earth, but quite different in the same sense. I'm going to use the word Natuka for it, which is what my made-up race, the Natu, used to refer to it, and it translates as rounded life is what it translates to, basically. When you go to the different cultures, you're going to find them call it different things, and I actually did this on purpose because if you go to different places and religions and things throughout history, we don't all call it Earth. We all had different names for it. My personal favorite name for it is Terra from Greece, but I digress. So, on this planet, we have a series of different species and clans spread out, living their own lives. And among those, we have the Natu, who are divided into 3 clans, the Natusa, the Natula, and the Natuba. And that little suffix means something different for each of them. But the race itself is called Natu. So basically, for example, if you have the Natuba, for example, the Ba translates to mean essentially strong, fierce, solid. So solid life, essentially, for lack of a better word. It's a little more nuanced than that, which I get into in the novel, but for purposes of this video, I think that kind of covers the basics. So you have the Natusa, who are divided into both rural and urban. Urban being they have these large cities where they have what they call defenders, who are essentially like knights. Their job is to defend the city and to defend the surrounding land. But unlike medieval knights, they don't own land. They have large wings within the palace of the city, but they do not own land. So the idea is that you enter to be a defender purely for altruistic reasons. That being said, do you get admirers? Do you get additional gifts and things like that? Yeah, you do. But defenders are actually based in their religion, in that a defender is thought to be someone that is chosen by either the mother or the father, depending on which religion you follow. That is their appointed one, their chosen one, to do good, to defend people, to make just decisions. The defenders kind of also work almost like a police force. They can kind of interpret and enforce laws throughout the city and the surrounding land. So that is mainly urban Natusa, and most of the urban Natusa follow the belief of the mother, which is this idea of there are two deities, a god and a goddess, and it's the goddess that has more influence and who they try to emulate. Then you have the rural Natusa, which live in dens or little collection of villages, usually underground though. Kind of like, think of like a very large fox's den, but has like wooden structures and additional buildings inside that little area. That's kind of what a Natusa den looks like. And they are more, there's a main leader, or it used to be that there was a main male and a main female that led it, but over time it has become just the main male that leads it. And they kind of have the iron fist kind of approach. What they say goes, that kind of thing. There are very traditional ideas within the rural Natusa beliefs about what women should do, what men should do, how many children you should have, that kind of thing. So I did that on purpose to kind of show this division of how a traditional society's views do change and shift, not just among the rural setting, but into the urban setting, because I think that's fun to explore. Then you have the Nachula. These are the guys that live up north, like in the way north. Basically, as far north as you can go, that's where these guys live. They follow, most of them, the religion of Aruda, which is the goddess of death. And their thought on that is essentially that death is viewed as a release. If you have lived a long, good life, then death will come and will release you, and you're able to move on to your next life. This culture is a little different than the others. Even though they're the same species, they have evolved into a very different society. They have a ruler, a monarch, who is supposed to be chosen every 20 years by essentially a trial of skill. But that has kind of dwindled away, and now it's more spread through bloodline. But the story gets more into how and why that happens, so I'm not going to spoil that here. But they have a monarch. But most of them live in these villages that are spread out throughout the land, and like I said, it's very cold. So they have homes that they can move very easily. They usually will do so when what they refer to as the thaw and the freeze. You have a spot that you live during the thaw, and then you have a spot that you live in during the freeze. And during the freeze, usually they're more huddled together into more condensed little villages. During the thaw, you spread out. So in this culture, the women grow up and they have a choice of being what they call either a breeder or obtaining a skill. Being a breeder means that you essentially, your job is to produce children. And so they will go around, will select a mate that they want. The mate has to agree to it. It's not just what she says and that's it. A child is produced, the mother tends to the child until they're weaned, then leaves them with the father and goes on to travel and continue to do the same thing throughout the countryside. So there is not this connection with the mother. There's just this, the mother's job is to kind of just have children. That's what she does. But not all women follow that. Some women choose to take on a trade and not have children. So, but the rearing of the children is done by the fathers. And there isn't as much literacy in this culture. Mainly if you're a noble or you're a royal, you probably know how to read, you probably know how to write. But if you're among the more rural area, you probably don't know how to read, you probably don't know how to write. You might know how to count, but that's going to depend. Most of the time, these people, they're living off the land. So they're fishing, they're hunting, they're trapping, they're trading furs and things like that. So there's a very close-knit community among them, but there's very much a distance between them and the royals. But the royal does technically have domination over them. Then you have the Natuba, who live in large forests or like countrysides like that. They typically build their homes up in the trees or into the tree itself. Sometimes you'll find them where they build them underground, like the Natusá do, but that's pretty rare because most Natupa are very claustrophobic, so they're not comfortable with that. They are much more an equal society. They do have a ruler, a king or queen, but it is a king or queen that is picked, and then the belief is that because they picked this king or queen, they're going to teach their son or daughter the same values, and then it's passed on through that line. But if it gets corrupted, rebellion is almost guaranteed. Like, these people have this belief of the ruler's job is to serve me. If they're not doing that, I have the right to get rid of them. So when we first meet them, we have our main character. One of our main characters is Tema, and he is the current prince. His mother is queen, and she is queen because she led the rebellion against the last ruler who had become tyrannical. And so after they were gotten rid of, the people chose her because she was the main leader of that rebellion. And so now he is going to inherit that title. They are very much devoted to nature, and depending on nature, they probably have the best medicine on the whole planet because of their exploration of nature, and just they know how to fight. And when you know how to fight, you typically learned how to fix wounds. They are also the ones that they keep in contact more with the other species. Most of the other Natu kind of keep to themselves. They don't really want to talk to the other clans. But these guys expand and explore with the other races. So they have alliances with a lot of the other races, which you will see comes to their advantage. Then you have the Stonemen. I really like these guys because they're like my version of the dwarves, but they're not short, which is why I call them Stonemen. They live on, they're scattered everywhere, but the main group that we go to are on an island, and they live in mountain halls, underground, that kind of thing. But they also use sand and shells and things like that. They're kind of a weird mix of Norse and Polynesian, and I'm not real sure how that happened, but it just ended up happening, so I just went with it. And these guys are fun. They have a ruler. Theirs is a little more complicated, though. So there is this belief in that there's kind of a divine line, but if that line dies out, then the leader of a military can take over. But there's also this belief that if a royal line has died out, a new one will emerge, but it has to be earned. So it isn't so much that, okay, you're picked to be the next royal line because reasons. Now you have to earn it. You have to do something, and then according to their legend, you'll get a mark or something on you if you've earned the right to the throne. So their religion is a lot of fun. They have this belief in what they call the all-parent, which is both male and female. And they have this idea that they were created and forged with fire and stone and sand and shell, which is why they think that they can domineer it, why they're so good at their carving and their crafts. But the main thing is these guys are my magic masters. These are the ones that know how magic works and how it interacts with nature and what it can do. Particularly with amulet magic, which is magic using a specific type of metal. They are also very well versed in the other types of magic in the world, even if they do not use it. It's something that started way back in their history, which again, I'll get into in this story, but they are the people that understand how magic works and what it does, how it works, how it interacts with other people, other things, what are the prices for it, that kind of thing. They're very knowledgeable on that, and it's something that they're taught from a very young age. So if you need to know about magic, these are the people you want to talk to. Let's see here. Then we have the Dragreen, who are an underground race. They live in a large underground city, way deep, where there are lakes and They do not have sunlight, so they do have bioluminescence down there, like animals and elements of their city that have bioluminescence. And that's how they see. But definitely their strongest sense is not their sight. They have not been above ground in centuries, and their government is extremely corrupt, very, very corrupt. There is something called the core. They just call it the core, honestly. It's a central government of representatives that are supposed to do what's best for all the people, but the representatives are paid off. They're usually hired by what's called the higher family, which is a family that's kind of doused in mystery. No one really knows much about them other than that they kind of control all the resources. So that's kind of the thing with the Dragream. The Dragream are a lizard-like race. They have like alligator-type snouts and horns and things like that. Given their name, they think there's dragon in their ancestry, but they're not sure because nobody on this planet has seen dragons for centuries, so nobody knows where the dragons went. So that's up for debate. Those are the main races. There are others that do show up. You will see fae, you will occasionally see elves, pixies, fairies, centaurs, that kind of thing. Unicorns. But those are the main races that the main characters come from. So I have 6 main characters. I have Ani, who is a Natusa, who is a Selnuk, which basically means he has been disowned by his family, and he is training to be a defender. You have Suna, his cousin, who is a Natusa, and she is still living with her father and her mother in their den in a rural Natusa society. You have Tima, who I've mentioned, Prince of the Natuba. You have Akiska, who is the son of Kia in the Natula area. They each have Zava, who is a legend among who is way too curious for his own sacred gem. And then you have Nala, and the idea is that they have decided to invest really each one of them has different society because he according to their society to investigate this legend of these sacred gems. He has some friends, but they find out that a lot of their history so those are our main 6. But a lie. It's a lie. And the main idea I have that has been in place for so long that a lot of people don't even really remember what the truth is. And so, because of their need of this gem, they have to find out the truth buried under all these centuries of falsehoods. And along the way, they find out that those falsehoods were put in place maybe by a higher being that is not necessarily benevolent. And I'll leave it like that, because like I said, blurbs are hard. I have a feeling my blurb is probably going to change as I continue to write this story and get it more condensed and more refined. But that's what I'll leave you guys with for now. That's the series start that I'm working on. It is an adult fantasy. I do believe the first book will probably lean more towards young adult. But I consider the whole thing to be adult because as it moves along, it does get darker and darker and deals with some deep-seated stuff, psychological issues, child abuse, racism, prejudice, genocide, all that lovely stuff. So I don't really want to have that in a young adult book. To my mind, the stuff that I'm going to go into is definitely more of an adult. So even though my main characters are children, it's an adult fantasy. And I love kid heroes. I've always loved kid heroes. And I like to put them in scenarios where their unique viewpoint of the world could potentially come in handy. So keep that in mind. So thank you guys for chiming in on just me giving a little info on what I'm working on. I appreciate all your guys' support. I always love reading your comments. So as always, if you have questions, concerns, ideas, drop them below. And I'll get to them as soon as I can. If you want to know whenever I upload, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss it. I try to upload every Friday, every Sunday, and I try to throw a few extra videos in there when I can. So I hope you guys are staying safe, and until next time, have a good one.